Hey y'all, welcome to the Healing Space Live and Online Chats with Roxanne and Rhonda, the podcast where guests will share information and research on self-love, living a wellness-filled life, how to heal from traumatic events, and more. This podcast is sponsored by Healing Hearts and Minds Publishing, LLC, a new company that publishes books that promote self-love, healthy relationships, avoidance of unhealthy relationships, and much, much more. Check out their first publication, Unhealthy Relationships, Let's Stop the Madness, a guide for those in unhealthy relationships and for those who want to help them. Written by first-time author and co-host of the Healing Space Live and Online, Roxanne Elizabeth Epperson. Visit Amazon.com to purchase the paperback or ebook. Enjoy the show. Hey y'all, welcome to another episode of Healing Space Live and Online Chats with Roxanne and Rhonda. And today's special guest is Tre Skelton, who is a CYF/IPV Specialist, and he'll share with us what that means. And he's going to talk to us today about the impact of fathers in their children's lives. I'm going to have a little something to say about that myself as well. So without further ado, I would like to turn it over to Rhonda for a moment, and then we'll go to our guests.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, because I don't know what time you're tuning into this podcast, because you can find us on Spotify, Pandora, YouTube, and anywhere where you get your podcast. I don't know what time of the day is where you're listening, but you know what? We want to welcome you. We want to thank you for taking time out of your day to join us. You know, Roxanne and I always center our conversations around relationships. Our goal one day is healthy relationships. Roxanne, you can see her book in the background, and it's about ending the violence. I don't know, I don't have quite the exact title, but it's really about ending intimate partner violence and getting to healthy relationships. So again, we thank you, we welcome you, and we're so glad you have tuned in to listen, whether you're in Pennsylvania, whether you're in Ohio, West Virginia, whether you are in Arkansas, California. We know we have guests listening too from many states, and so we say hello to you wherever you are. Our topic today, as Roxanne said, is very important. So Tre is going to tell us about his profession, and what he does is he introduces himself. And then we're going to get into, as we always do, some casual conversation. You know, we like to keep it informal, and that R for Rhonda, that R for Roxanne, let's keep it real. Hi, Tre.
Hey, how y'all doing today?
Great.
But yeah, like y'all said, my name is Tre Skelton. I'm glad to be here. I'm a CYF IPV Specialist. I'm employed by the Women's Center and Shelter at Greater Pittsburgh. So the role of my job basically is to give psychoeducation not only to families that are dealing with CYF, but also give that same psychoeducation to CYF caseworkers on how to deal with those families who are dealing with intimate partner violence or domestic violence, as a common term as everyone else kind of knows it as. So what we do is we hold groups. We have a CYF moms group, and we just started a CYF dads group. And we also do individual sessions with our clients as well. So, like I said, the goal is to give that psychoeducation around domestic violence and give them the tools and tips so that they will be able to put those things in their relationship and be able to work on it.
So, Tre, tell me something. Tell us something.
Mm-hmm.
Do these fathers come willingly? Do they want to be there? Or is it like pulling teeth to get them to participate? What is that like?
So, you know, it kind of depends. But the one thing that is constant with every father that I work with is that they love their children. So 9 times out of the 10, they'll do anything that they need to you know, be in their children's lives, if that's what their goal is. So that's the constant. But sometimes you do have parents who do have pushback, and it's not necessarily because they don't want their children or they don't want that education. It might be they don't feel like they need to, that they feel like they may be getting pressure from the system sometimes, and they want to advocate for themselves and have a voice in that experience.
Interesting. Very interesting. So when we were talking, and I first talked about having you as a guest, talked to Roxanne about it, we were really excited. And I just started putting the question in my mind, why dads anyway? And I mean, I'm a daddy's girl, so I don't want to come at it as if fathers aren't important. I believe they are. The reason I'm phrasing the question like that is there are so many absent fathers, so many moms who have to step up and do the job. Talk to us about why dads anyhow.
So, when you say why dads anyhow, like you mean like why dads are important?
Yeah, exactly. Why dads important? Why do we need them in the family anyway?
Well, one, I think it's very important, to speak to how you started it off. I think it's important to talk about the trauma that a lot of families go through, from past histories and things of that nature that lead to, the absent father and things of that. The African American, and I won't go into too much detail, but we kind of know the trauma of, taking a father away from the home and how that has historically affected the African American community. So I think a lot of the times, a lot of trauma plays into that. And I think, over time, a lot of that has been broken, but you do have systems telling you, and you have, media and different things telling you that the father may not be important. But I feel like if you're, doing the work into the work and really talking to dads, they do want to be involved, but there's different levels to things, I think. And I think that needs to be said.
Yeah.
Can I jump in here? Rhonda said she was a daddy's girl.
Mhm.
I met my dad when I was 21 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I was cheated and robbed out of the opportunity. No, I know I was cheated and robbed out of the opportunity to be a daddy's girl. And he got married. Him and my mom, obviously, they were never married, but he remarried. He got married, and there was 5 children in the family. So he's, as they became adults, he was Papa. I didn't know what to call him for 2 years after I met him. I don't call him dad. That didn't feel right. His sister told me to call him father. That didn't feel right either. But I did. And after a while, he did become dad. Then I became jealous watching him Papa to these other little people. And then the children in the neighborhood. He was let's go get popsicles from Papa. So I just believe that I know I was cheated, and I always wished I had been a daddy's girl. I didn't get a chance to ride on his shoulders. They give you the piggyback rides, or just something as simple as driving lessons. I believe I don't drive. Had my dad been in my life, there's no doubt in my mind I would be driving, because he worked at Ford. So why would I not be driving? So I just had to throw that out about my missing out on being a daddy's girl. And I don't even know the whole story or your whole pitch yet, but I believe it's definitely important.
And
dads are important.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I think your story. Thank you for your story, because I think that speaks exactly to why fathers are important. And like I said, there's a lot of trauma. There's levels to things. So every situation is different. Every household is different. What everyone goes through is different. And I think that's important to speak to. So what builds us up as people, it always starts in the home. So, depending on what your home life may have looked like, the things that you may have learned from not having a father around, the things you may have missed out from not having a father around, those life lessons can be very important. And so I appreciate that, because I think that speaks very eloquently to why fathers are important to be in the home.
Yeah. Roxanne, I don't remember riding on my dad's shoulders, but I remember dancing on his toes. That was our dance.
Same thing, right on his toes, right on his shoulders, and just let me just share with you real quick too. My dad had guilt for not being in my life, and I tried to take it away from him, because we did, I met him when I was 21. An incident happened, and we kind of fell out for about 5 years, but from that point until he left this earth due to the pandemic and COVID-19, we had a relationship, and he would watch the talk shows where the dad would meet the child after 20 years or whatever. And it would always make him feel guilty. And I tried to comfort him and let him know, but we got each other now. It's all good, But I just had to throw that out there.
Like I said, I appreciate that. You know what I mean? And I think it's important too, like, we do have to take the time that we do have with our parents. You know what I'm saying? Like we all have to grow. We all have to go through those growing pains. So there may be times where we don't see eye to eye with our parents. Just like in every relationship, you may not see eye to eye with your partner, your friend, family member, whoever it may be. But you know, we all need that space and time to grow sometimes. But it's important to realize we only have one parent on this earth. So it's important to utilize and maximize the time that you have with your parents while they're here. So you can, like I said, gain that knowledge, learn a lot of things. I had a conversation with my dad recently, and I learned a lot about him that I never knew, and it was very surprising, and it made me happy to have that conversation with my dad. So I understand exactly where you're coming from with that. You know what I mean? It's important to, like I said, maximize the time that we have with not only our dads but our mothers as well, with both our parents, to gain that wealth of knowledge, because you know those are the ones who brought us into this world. You know, at the end of the day, they can be a great support to us.
Yeah. Trey, can you talk a little bit about, because I know you work with men of all ages, can you talk a little bit about any difference you see with younger dads versus maybe older? And by age, I'm just going to give a general idea for younger dads, anywhere from 17 through maybe 31. So yeah, 31, I'm going to allow you to still say you're a younger dad. And maybe 30, some 45-year-old dads. Do you see any differences? And if so, what kind of differences do you recognize?
So yeah, there is a difference, and I think a lot of it comes because of those because we've evolved as humans, as human beings. A lot of us have seen kind of what those traumas look like, what history kind of looks like, and a lot of us has experienced what it's like not to have a father in the home. So I feel like a lot of people in that age bracket that you just named are trying to break that generational curse, so to speak. You know, not being a father in the home. They don't want that for their child because they knew what that was like. They knew what that experience was like, not having a father in the home, trying to become a man, but not really, maybe not having that male role model in the home. You know, sometimes we have the uncle replace. You may have the granddad replace. You may have an older cousin even that may replace. But even if you don't have that, it may be even harder. You know, trying to take those things from a woman. You know, growing up in a household full of women, sometimes you hear them say things like, "Man, you don't know, you mom, you're not your grandma, you're not understanding where I'm coming from as a young man growing up." So I think it's important, especially when you have those male role models, if you don't have a dad in the home, to gain that knowledge from them, because they may have been able to say, you know, I've been there, done that.
Mm. That's good to hear. Roxanne, let me know whenever. Just cut me off, because you know I'll get to going. So
No, go ahead. Because I don't have any prepared questions. I'm just letting you do your thing, and I will stop you in a little while when it's time to do an ad.
okay, thank you. All right, so when I was researching it for this conversation, also I found something about a Dr. David, and I'm going to spell his last name, so I'm not sure how to pronounce. P is in Paul. Openoe. I would call that Popenoe. I messed that all up. So anyway, I'm going to refer to him as Dr. David because I can say his first name. He is professor of sociology at Rutgers University and the co-director of the National Marriage Project. So in his reading, or in his article that I was reading, I want to just share a comment, and I'm going to ask you just to comment on what he says here. He says, fathers are far more than just second adults in the home. Involved fathers, especially biological fathers, bring positive benefits to their children that no other person is likely to bring. And you just said, Trey, that you may be a grandfather, uncle, a cousin, somebody, and we know, I'm sure in every ethnicity, this is true. And I'm going to speak to it from the perspective of in the African American community, that we know in the African American community, there are other people who will step in, whether it is a coach, whether it's a deacon at the church, you know, whether it is the next door who that father is present. So he takes on the role. Roxanne just said her dad was known on the block. They'll get popsicles from her dad, you know. So we know men in the African American community have reached out, they have stepped up. But this, Dr. David is saying that a father is more than a second adult, and they bring positive benefits to their children. Well, I love that statement, and we always have to think about the unfortunate side of intimate partner violence, where the dad may be, or the man may be a really good parent, but not a good husband. I have a friend, she's been divorced for many, many years now, but I remember what she said when she was married, and it always stuck with me. She said, when he's being a good husband, he's not a good father. And when he's a good father, he doesn't know how to be a good husband. He didn't know how to blend both, like pay attention to both. So, Tre, what do you say about fathers who, unfortunately, don't give the positive role modeling part, but they're in the home? Because we're talking about the impact of fathers on children, what kind of impact might that have or might that leave on children?
That can definitely have a negative impact, especially on children when they get older and try to form those relationships, especially those intimate partner relationships. It can definitely be a hindrance to them if they let it. I feel everyone has the opportunity to change, has the opportunity to break certain cycles that may be in their family, and I think you have to have the want to. One of my favorite movies is Poetic Justice, and there's a line in there by Maya Angelou, and she's talking about how you may have a bad parent, and your parent may not be able to show you how to do all the correct things. However, at a certain age, you do learn right from wrong. So it's up to you, however, to start to make that change. So I wholeheartedly believe in that. But also how it can be negative. Those relationships, those early interactions that children see especially from the mother and the father are very critical. Very critical. It starts to at an early age. Children feel the vibe, so to speak, feel those vibrations. They feel the energy in the room. They can feel when there may be a tension between mom and dad, not necessarily tension because of them or towards them, but they can feel the tension in that household. A lot of people say, well, the child never heard me and mom arguing, and they may not have heard it, they may not have seen it, but they could feel it. You know what I mean? Once you guys are all in the room together, they can feel it. It's there. You know what I mean? That energy is there. So it definitely can have a negative effect, and I think that's very, very important to highlight.
Wow, that's critical. No, that is critical. I want to reemphasize what you just said. I don't want anybody listening to miss that point. Children know from the vibe in the house. So maybe they did not hear you argue or see you when you were raising your hand or raising your voice. They didn't see or hear that, but the vibe carries on. How do you think that?
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No, go ahead. No, I was just going to say, I don't believe that they didn't hear, that they don't hear. Think they're asleep, but them little people, little people are nebby. They heard it.
And they hear it, and then also they may not say anything, but they may internalize it. They may and it's wild because kids at an early age, they learn how to cope with things early. So they may have a favorite hat in place in the house in order to deal with that. You know what I mean? They may have a favorite animal. Well, a lot of people may call it a lovey. You know what I mean? Like a teddy bear or something like that to hold on to. It helps soothe them during those times. And then as children get older, we try to take those things away from them, but not understanding that, there may be some trauma connected to why they're so attached to those things.
And also, speaking of knowing that they're hearing, I witnessed this in my family. There is a couple in my family that are were abusive towards each other. And there was a toddler in the family. And this toddler we all could hear them arguing. And the toddler did not even respond. So that made me feel like this was the norm. Yeah. She didn't even, it didn't even affect her. Another family member, when their toddler witnessed abuse, this baby wasn't even 1 year old. He was trying to get that man, get off my mommy. Now that might have been the first time, I'm not sure, but with the other ones, that baby was it didn't even faze her. I'm like, wow, that broke my heart.
Yeah, and there's a lot of times, we'll go into the home to, help caseworkers talk about intimate partner violence, explain our services to the family, and sometimes it'll get heated, between mom and dad, asking them those tough questions about conflict in their relationship, and you'll see that, you'll see them start to get heated, and you'll see the child just over there playing with a toy or not phased back, and that's a red flag to let you know like this is constant. You know what I mean? They're not even phased by what's going on. So yeah, no, that's real.
Mhm. And there's someone who used to do work in a program, battering intervention program. I remember him talking about seeing children who knew not to cry. And I mean, it's okay. I mean, that's what kids do. And he's talking about young kids, like what Roxanne's referring to, 2, 3-year-old kids. And he said you could just open their eyes, but they wouldn't let a tear fall, And that's like, that's so sad to me because a kid can't be a kid. And that is often the impact of poor children who live in homes where there's intimate partner violence. They don't get the experience of just being a kid. So yeah. I was going to ask you, and I think you went that direction. Roxanne took the conversation that direction because I was going to ask you, what impact do you think it has on children outside the home? Children at school, daycare, in their lives. What do you think it's like for children who live in homes where it's negative vibes? What's it like for them outside the home?
Well, I think a couple different ways. Some kids they can end up being aggressive. You know what I mean? They can let out that frustration on other children. You know what I mean? Being bullied, things of that nature. But also, you can have children that are very passive, who aren't focused in school, who are just in a whole nother world, and it might not be because they're not trying to learn or anything. They this is their piece right now. So they may not their focus may just be on what they want to focus on. That might be their piece. I think it's very important to note that I used to work in schools, and a lot of times I would see teachers real quick to recommend medicine for children because they weren't looking at the board while they were talking, or they may have been doodling or something like that, something small. And a lot of the times I remember talking to them being like, well, one, that doesn't necessarily mean they're not paying attention or anything like that, or even sometimes I'm just really being disruptive, and I can understand that. However, we got to look at what the goal is by the disruption. Are they looking for positive attention, negative attention, or is it just attention? Period. Because that can be a tall tale to like, hey, they may not be getting that positive, that healthy attention that they need at home. So sometimes you have to look at it a little deeper instead of going so quick to medicine or things like that. I can't think of the word I'm trying to use, but I'll just say fixers right now, quick fixes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and a lot of times that is what medicine is used for, a quick fix, but it doesn't solve it. It's like it doesn't make that child become a healthy person necessarily. But, and I think I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, and I was gonna say, and it can take away from their personality too. A lot of I remember I had a kid that I worked with when I was teaching in the school, and he was a little wild, and teachers would think he was a bad kid, but when I worked with him, I didn't necessarily think he was a bad kid. Understand he can get off focus, but I was able to get him back on focus, and they did end up putting him on medicine, and he was a totally different kid. He didn't have the same energy. He didn't seem as happy. He just seemed real monotone, and he was less of a disruption in class. It made it easier for the teacher, but what did it take away from that child? You know what I'm saying? So sometimes it may be needed. I'm not trying to say it's not needed, but sometimes we may have to work just a little bit harder instead of going for those quick fixes.
Yeah.
I wish I knew about this topic many years ago when I was doing the after school program, because there was a little boy. He came in. If he was a grown man, he would have beat the crap out that teacher. But he was trying with his little bitty self to beat up the teacher.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, what was going on? Now I'm sitting here thinking, what the heck was going on in his family life for him to come in and think that he can beat up a teacher? I'm thinking he probably watched his dad beat up his mother.
Yeah.
Learn behavior.
For you. Yeah, I have a story for you about my time teaching. I had a student. and I worked in a preschool. And he was about 4 years old, and he was really aggressive. He threw a chair at a teacher. He swung on me, actually, connected too. So it was so yeah, he was very aggressive. And the story with him was he actually saw his father get beat up by his mom's boyfriend. And their history was kind of rough. So it wasn't, and that's IPV to a certain extent. The mom got the dad to beat up this man in front of his son. So it was really hard to, talk to him, especially even as the male in the room. He didn't have any respect. I saw him sometimes even give his dad a hard time. And from seeing his dad get beat up, that can be traumatic. You know what I'm saying? Saying your father get beat up, that can be real traumatic, and that can affect you, especially at a young age. He was only 4 years old, and his aggression was real. He was, like I said, throwing chairs and swinging on teachers, and very, very, very argumentative at 4 years old. So it can have an effect. It can definitely have a negative effect on your child's behavior, and sometimes you got to work a little harder to work with that child. Unfortunately, in that situation, in that scenario, he did get removed from the school after a while. But sometimes sometimes you can do all you can do, and the place you're at just might not be a fit for that child at the time. But that trauma for that child was real, and he displayed it in class, not only to his teachers but to his classmates as well.
Yeah. That's so sad.
Might be a good time. Go ahead, Rhonda.
No, I was really just saying that's so sad because it just makes me think of parents who want to parent or people who want to parent and don't get the opportunity for whatever medical, physical, biological reason they're not able to parent. And then there's parents who damage children. That always just breaks my heart when I even think about it. So that this mom encouraged a man to beat up that child's father in his presence. And what gets me, Tre, Roxanne, what gets me is a lot of parents says, I'm teaching them how to be a man. I ain't gonna have it. My son won't be a punk. Like, so many ways to teach manhood that does not involve violence. And I don't think violence ever teaches a way to be a man.
I agree.
So I was getting ready to say that it's time for us to do a little ad, but before we do it, I just wanted to just share what Rhonda was talking about. Some people want to parent, some don't. Here in Pittsburgh, I don't know if it was right in the city or somewhere nearby. They didn't want this couple didn't want to parent to the point where they killed the baby and stuffed the baby in a wall. What the hell? And me and my colleagues at work was trying to figure out what kind of conversation, how did that conversation go to decide who said, let's put the baby in the wall, the dead baby in the wall. I'm just, because there's so many people who would love to have taken that baby and raised that baby, so I don't know. That had nothing to do with what we was talking about, I don't think, but I just, that vision, that news story just popped in my head, and it just pisses me off.
I'm just gonna say that's sick. That's sick. It's an illness that I don't know.
I don't know how somebody agreed to it. One of them had to come up with that idea, and the other one agreed to it. It's like, for real?
Yeah.
But okay, so we'll just give my heart a rest right now and let Rhonda do her thing.
All righty. So Roxanne and I are so super proud that we have a paid sponsor for our for our podcast, Healing Space Live and Online, Chats with Roxanne and Rhonda. And it's Lutheran Settlement House out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Lutheran Settlement House has a lot of services, and some of them are food access. So for families in the Philadelphia area who have food insecurity, you certainly can call Lutheran Settlement House. They have a domestic violence program. They have a program for senior services. They have education. They do special events. They have a men's program there that I absolutely love. It's about teaching masculinity, and it's their men actually do a lot of projects for Lutheran Settlement House. They come around and they help like with cleaning up and helping at special events and volunteer to help set up. So they do a lot of good things there with their fathers at Lutheran Settlement House. In all transparency, I am on my phone trying to get you the phone number. Sorry I didn't have it in advance. But I do want you to know that if you need their services, they are available. They have a hotline program as well. So let me just see if I can get that. Here it is. Let me get that information quickly for you. And they are located at 1340 Frankfurt Avenue in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Their phone number is 215-426-8610. So again, thank you to Lutheran Settlement House for sponsoring our podcast. We are very excited about that. And we want you to know if you need shelter for intimate partner and domestic violence, they have referral sources for you through Lutheran Settlement House. So thank you, Lutheran.
Thank you, Lutheran Settlement House.
Hey, Trey, let that be a little switch. Our time goes so fast. I'm always amazed that it goes so quickly. But I just want to bring some tips, some fun, maybe not fun, healthy kind of tips. And I remember when I was challenged on this, that Father, and Dr. David has something in his article about this as well. In his article, he says, dads, for instance, love their children more dangerously. I said, I better read a little bit more. What you mean dads love children more dangerously? And it says that's just because they play rougher, and that's true. Dads will roughhouse with kids and in a loving way, wrestle with them and play with them. And mom's like, stop before you hurt that boy. He's only 3 years old. Even then, the dad's not going to hurt him. And I remember seeing a video one time about how dads parent differently. And I'll give a shout out to my brother. He showed me this, George Fleming, who we expect to have on soon as a follow-up to this topic, where he will focus on older dads. In the meantime, George showed this video, and he showed a father with his toddler, tossing them in the air and catching them. Tossing them in the air and catching them. And I'm like shaking. I'm watching the video shaking. It wasn't my child. It wasn't even happening live. I'm like, oh my God, he's going to drop the baby. He did not drop the baby. But dads do parent differently. So what are some healthy ways that dads may parent that's different from how a mom? And let's just put a caveat there. Some moms roughhouse with their kids also. So we don't want to be stereotypical and say the male gender is the only gender who will do this. However, typically in our society, we look at and see that men do raise children differently. And they are, as Dr. Davis says, they love more dangerously. Now, love is the key word in that sentence. What are some healthy ways that you've seen or know fathers, even maybe some of your dads who strive to do these things? Trey, what are some of those things?
So, so I think that was an interesting way that he put it, but I understood exactly what you meant by that. So, I think it's funny because I'm having a hard time trying to word it, but the way I'm thinking about it is kind of how I worked with kids. I have a niece, I had a goddaughter, things like that. And one of the things that I used to do was, in order to succeed, you're going to have to fall. You're going to fail sometimes. So it's important that you learn that early and you get right back up and try again. Especially when working in after school programs. A lot of the times you would go out with kids, they would play, they would want to do things. They might see a kid climbing on the monkey bars or doing something like that. And they may be scared because it's really, really, really high. You may help them a couple of times, but then that third time, all right, you're on your own, but I'm here with you. Now, if you fall, I got you. Help make sure you get back up, but I'm here with you. You know what I mean? So I that was the first thing that came to my head as a healthy way, because there's going to be times when, especially once our children get older, we're not going to be there for them. We're not going to be able to do it for them. So it's important for them to learn at that early age that, okay, I got to at least try and learn how to do this myself. And then when they do learn how to do it themselves, they feel confident and they're able to go on and take what they've just learned and apply it to other things. So that's one of the things that came to my mind initially about how fathers and male role models, period, just who are working with children. That's kind of how they, in a healthy way, role model and parent.
Wow, I like that. I like what you said. It helps build their confidence, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I also like what you said when you're kind of the monkey bars. You might fall, but I got you. I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm right here. That is, yeah. You know, I always say I end up being a single mom, and as a single mom, I have to admit I'm glad I had a daughter because I don't know that I'm sure I would have adapted because I would have had to. Um, I will just be honest to say it was much easier for me to be a single parent to a daughter than it would have been for me to be a single parent with a son. You know, because I probably been like want my son to sit down, stay neat, stay clean, like don't scuff up your shoes.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
love sports, you know, so it would have been like sports for everybody else, but not my son.
Yeah. And it's funny because, you know, my grandma was very influential in my life. My godmom was very influential in my life. And I love sports, you know what I mean? And I remember coming home and the knees of my pants would be jacked up. My shoes would be scuffed up. And I already knew as soon as I hit the door, I was going to hear it. So, you know what I mean? So I understand exactly where you're coming from. And I used to be like, man, I don't even think I'm going to play today. But then I'm like, forget it, whatever. I'll take this ear beating to go get a touchdown or something.
But it's almost time to come to a close here. Wanda,
Oh,
do you have any more questions for Tre, or do you have any impactful statement you would like to leave us with?
Well,
Wanda,
if you guys didn't have any more questions, I'll wait to see if there's any questions.
yeah, I'm gonna say
you
round
know,
Wanda first.
Roxanne has to be the timekeeper because I will go on and on. I love this subject. So I will thank Trey at this point. Yeah, but you still have time to make your closing comments, Trey, and of course, Roxanne. I would just like to thank you for agreeing to be here. Thank you for the knowledge that you have shared, the important tips that you have given. So to all the fathers, younger, older, but all the dads who are striving to be a healthy influence on your child's life, please put this podcast or report so you can listen to it again and again. Thank you, Trey.
No, I appreciate it. I thank you guys for this opportunity. This is my first time speaking on a podcast, and I was really excited about it. So I appreciate this opportunity. I wanted to say this is a subject that I am very passionate about. I originally never thought this is something I would be doing with my life, but here I am now. There was something that you just said earlier, and it was kind of leaning towards the roles of men, just period, and it kind of reminded me what you were saying. It reminded me of the man box. I'm not sure if there's too many people that are familiar with the man box, but the man box is basically what do you feel is important to be a man? And there's a lot of positive things in a man box, and there's a lot of negative things in a man box. And one of the things that we were talking about, and it made me think about this when we were talking about dealing with kids and not letting children be able to be children. I can't speak for all men everywhere, but I know some of my friends I've spoken to, and myself, and particularly, you know, one of the things that you learn as a young man is you can't cry. You know, in the video about the man box, the man Tony Porter, who shouts out to Tony Porter as well, who speaks on the man box. He talks about how he was at a funeral and his brother had died, and his dad cried in the limousine. Once everyone left the limousine, it was just him and his dad. Then he apologized to his son for crying, and I thought that was a powerful statement because, you know, a lot of the times men go through life and we take so much things on and we feel like we don't have an emotional outlet in a healthy way. A lot of the times it ends up being violent. Sometimes some of us may turn to drugs, alcohol, in order to cope with some of the things that we're going through. And I think it's important to state, just as men, it's okay to have those healthy outlets. And I'm not saying that you have to cry or boo-hoo all the time, or even that you have to do it in front of people. But if you need to take that time to yourself, to let those emotions out, to take the time, and it might not have to be crying. It might you may have a different outlet, whatever your outlet may be. It's important to take time for yourself, especially as a father, as a husband, as a man. Period. A lot of times as men, we feel like we have to be there for everyone, and we can't have that time for ourselves. But if the reality is, we can't take care of anyone else unless we're okay. So we have to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves as well.
Wow.
So I just want you guys to, if you want to hear the whole Tony Porter talk, go to warheals.org and listen to our podcast, Straight Talk Domestic Violence Part 2. It was aired, we did it twice. We did it as the original version, and then we did an encore presentation. I can't see the original, but it's on there in, I think it, let me see. Wait a minute. It was aired on October 14th, 2021. And you'll hear the whole talk that he just talked about. We loved it. I really enjoyed that presentation. So yeah, at least because of Rhonda, I do know about the man box. So that was good. Yeah, thank you. That was wonderful. Now, before we leave, first of all, we might have you back. No, we're going to have you back. I'm creating a private space for women who've been abused and sexually or doing domestic violence, and it's called Healing Space Warriors. I will be doing some recruiting, and I'm off from my job for 10 days at the end of the month, so I'll be focusing on the recruitment process, and I could see you coming in and talking to these women in this private group. So keep your ears open for that email. I need to know if you have any products or services to sell, and how can people reach you?
Yeah, so you can reach me on my email. If anyone wants to reach out, you can reach me on my email. You can reach me at tskelton92@gmail.com. I'm currently not on any social media, but that will be changing very shortly.
Great. Thank you. I've really enjoyed your talk, and I just wanted to let anybody else know. Rhonda smilingly talked about our one sponsor, but we would love to have more. So if anybody is interested in sponsoring our podcast, you can reach out to us at info@warheals.org, and that's war, WAARHEALS.org. And then that's it. Reach out.
One more thing. Also, I just want to promote the CYF Dads group. Anyone who is any fathers that may be experiencing domestic violence, any fathers that may be experiencing anything with CYF and dealing with domestic violence, especially, you can still reach out to me, and we can get you set up with our CYF Dads group.
Reach out, gentlemen, please. And then my girl, what you got over there, Rhonda?
I never have anything to show, but I want to show this. I'm a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated in the Pittsburgh chapter, Alpha Alpha Omega. We produced a calendar for 2022, and it's a salute to the women of the Harlem Renaissance, right? So I'm just going to flip it around, and you can see that we did one for each month. So it is really, it's really odd of me because we heard a lot about the men from the Harlem Renaissance, the same thing with men and the civil rights. There was women involved in all of those movements, So Regina Anderson is in there, Zora Neale Hurston is in there, Gladys Bentley is in there, and some of these women, I'll be honest, I've never heard of Gladys Bentley, So there's some very interesting stories. So if you would like information on how to purchase this calendar, it's $15, and you can reach me at Rhonda Fleming 82 @yahoo.com. And I'm going to go over that. My spelling is RHONDAFLEMING 82 @yahoo.com. Please put purchase calendar in the subject line. Purchase calendar in the subject line. We'll have them until they sell out, and we're pretty sure they will sell out. So thank you.
I'll be buying one. I buy everything you guys do. Everything the daggone AKAs do. I'm always sending a couple of popcorn, calendars, whatever.
And we thank you.
Yeah. So I kind of think that is the end of our. Anything else, Wanda? Did we leave anything else? Did we leave anything else? Well, just so you guys know, I'm sorry.
No, we covered our time. Thank you.
Okay, good. So our podcast is broadcast every Thursday at 5 p.m. And on the last Thursday of the month, excluding this month because it's the holiday season, we do a live Zoom podcast where people can ask questions. And so we do that on the last Thursday of the month. And we look forward to hopefully you guys being a part of that. And Rhonda and I have a little closing, but I want to talk to her about this closing because it doesn't work. We look real crazy doing it. Because when we were in the same room, it works. But we've been trying to do this on Zoom and it just looks so funny to me. But we'll try it anyway. Let's go, Rhonda. Because we really want you guys to know that we got your back. Now, we're supposed to be back to back. Now, we don't look back to back, but y'all got the point, right?
Shoulder to shoulder.
Yeah, we got your back. And thank you guys so much.
There are 2 things we would like you to do. Number 1, enter our monthly drawing by sending your email address to info@warheels.org. Spelled out, that is info@WARHEALS.org. Put drawing in the subject line. We will notify the winner or winners via email by midnight on the last Thursday of each month. Our second request, engage with us on IG. Follow, like, and subscribe to all of our social media platforms at warheels_ on IG, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. WAARHEALS_ on IG, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. As always, we thank you for listening and see you next week.